Tonight we have our guests, author Lorna Schultz Nicholson and illustrator Alice Carter, as we celebrate their book titled Good Morning Sunshine, The Joey Moss Story. Alice is a local Ottawa illustrator. She has illustrated numerous picture books, including the Pierre and Paul series, Agnes All Aglow, and My Puppy Patch, which was shortlisted for the Jean Throop Book Award. Lorna has published picture books, middle grade fiction and nonfiction, young adult fiction, and adult hockey nonfiction. Her books have been nominated for many Canadian awards. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So I'll start off by saying I adored this book. My biggest takeaway was simply the joy and love someone born with an extra chromosome provides to those around them just by being themselves. And I've had the honor of experiencing that since 2015. So Lorna, would you like to start off by sharing your favorite page?
My favorite page. You're making me already have some tears in my eyes. This is my favorite page, and I think that Alice just did an amazing job of this page. This page is all Joey's brothers and sisters, and there were 13 in the family, and Joey was the 12th out of 13. And when I wrote this, I gave it to the editor and I said, I really, really want all the names to stay in there. So don't edit this out. I have to leave this in there. And then I was just so curious as to what Alice was going to do with this. And when I got the mock-ups, my heart was just like, oh my goodness, it looks like school magnets. I mean, it was just so beautifully done. And actually, Patty, his sister, who really, really helped me out with the book, she just said, that just looks like everybody. She felt that everybody looked like everybody, all her brothers and sisters. But I have to tell you, at one point, I had Timmy and Jimmy mixed up. Listen, inside story, I had Timmy and Jimmy mixed up on the mock-ups, and that's not Alice's fault, that's my fault. And when they email, so I sent it out and it went to all the siblings that are still alive. And they come back and Timmy's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Timmy says, I've always been number 5. And in the book, I'm number 6. And when he comes in, they chime in. He says, this is number 5, chiming in. Like everybody would come in with their birth order number. It was really funny. Anyway, that's my favorite page. That was a long-winded answer. That was my favorite page.
I loved it.
That's my favorite page too, just
So Lorna, I understand you have a personal connection with Down syndrome and your friendship with the Moss family. So can you tell us a little bit about Joey and what inspired you to write about his life?
Well, Joey was just magic. I mean, he really, really did consistently try to make people smile. And the first title of the book, I think, well, for when the book sold, was Making People Smile. That was my original title. And when he passed away, I just knew that there had to be a book written about him. And I just feel that books are solid. Like this book will stay on a shelf for years and years and years to come. And I thought that was really important to keep him alive, but to also just show that people born with Down syndrome can do so much. He was so meticulous with his work and he worked so hard. And in fact, when I was writing the book, one of the guys who worked with him said, Joey was my first boss, because when he came in, he said, you like trash, recycling. And he wouldn't let anybody put anything that wasn't trash in trash or recycling in recycling. Okay. And he really told the players all the time. He would tell them to pick up their stuff. And sometimes they would find Joey walking down the hall, like picking like little pieces of lint off the carpet, because he just took such pride in what he did. So it was really wonderful that the family was so supportive of the project as well. And so his older sister, Patty, was the one that I dealt with the most. Of course, the parents have since passed away. And I had done a lot of other events with Joey through the years, like the Down syndrome fashion show, and I'd been at other different events. And I was friends with people that are in the Edmonton Down Syndrome Society. So and I have another good friend named Tanya. She was born with Down syndrome. And so Tanya and Joey did a lot of events together. They actually spoke at different events. And so, I had a lot of like connections in the city of Edmonton with the Down Syndrome Society there.
Awesome. How did Joey's family react when you told them you wanted to write this book?
They were really excited about the book. They were all really excited, and they felt that it was going to be a really good project. They were happy to know that Joey's legacy was going to carry on. And when I first started it, it was kind of, how do I write this? Am I writing this as a biography that is for adults, or am I writing this as like a middle grade book? Like, what am I doing? And then it just, when I sat down to write, it was just going to be a picture book.
Yeah,
that's what I came up with. I thought, I'm going to make this into a picture book, and they were really excited about it. The entire family was, and his nephew Adam was really, really helpful. Adam gave me a lot of information, so I was very helpful that there was like such a big family that was able to help. They were delighted.
Awesome. Lorna, do you want to read a page of your book?
Sure, I'd love to. I'll read the very beginning of it.
Sure.
Joey Moss loved making people smile. He made people smile when he played the tambourine. He made people smile when he sang "O Canada" with his hand across his heart. And he made people smile when he danced to the song La Bamba. I danced with Joey many times to La Bamba. But most of all, Joey Moss made people smile just by being himself. Joey Neil Moss was born on September 25th, 1963 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Let's get that picture there. When Joey was born, he had 7 brothers and 4 sisters. He was the 12th child for Sophie and Lloyd Moss. When his parents brought him home from the hospital, they knew there was something different about him. He was born with Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a genetic disorder, and Joey was born with an extra chromosome in his DNA. This meant that Joey might have delays in development and learn differently. And then there's my favorite spread. In 1963, children born with Down syndrome were often institutionalized, which meant that they did not live at home with their families. Parents were told that their child could be a burden, but Joey's parents didn't listen. They kept him at home and treated him like all the other siblings. At dinner time, his mother would quickly rattle off their names. Mervyn, Terry, Patty, Mickey, Timmy, Jimmy. Why she had so many IEs, I have no idea. Susie, Barbie, Freddie, Mark, Vicky, Joey, and 5 years later, Stephen was born, making 13 children total.
Thank you, Lorna. I'm not sure if you touched on this, but what was the reaction to the final product when the book was
when they got the illustrations? Everybody was absolutely delighted, because you're going to be talking to Alice in a few minutes, but Alice captured Joey. And even this front cover photo, like this cover illustration, when I look at that, I see Joey. I see him. And in all the illustrations, I see Joey. And I mean, this one here, amazing. And then I love how the progression of the progression with him of some of his, like when he walked down the street, I'm going to find one. Like just the different progressions of him with glasses on, like all through the years, we could see the real Joey. So they were delighted. They were absolutely, and actually their favorite page is the page with all the little snapshots too.
Okay.
Really, yeah.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that you are big in the DS community. So I know it's not your first time writing about a person with Down syndrome. So what are your other connections with the DS community?
Well, I wrote a book called Born With, which is in a series, like it's sort of a young adult series. And I have a character in there that is born with Down syndrome. And that's when I got to know Tanya really well, and all Tanya's friends. And they were all part of the Edmonton Down Syndrome Society. So then, of course, I always did the fashion show with them. And let me tell you, they were way better on the runway than I ever was. we didn't we would have to follow, and we'd be like, oh my goodness, they come out and they can dance and sing, and then I'd come out in high heels and I'd be so nervous. I'd be like, I can't do this. So I got to know Tanya really well, and another woman by the name of Rosalind, who was the president of the association. And I went to, when they opened up the Literacy Foundation, the Joy Moss Literacy Foundation, I went to that opening. So I did lots of just different events in the city. And then I was able to talk to Tanya a lot, and she gave me a lot of help with the character that I was writing in that novel. So I thanked her in the end, and she's always very appreciative that I thanked her in the end.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thanks, Lorna. The last question for you, Lorna. What was the most surprising feedback you've received from readers about Good Morning Sunshine?
That's a good question. What is the most surprising feedback? I don't know. I just think that when I go to schools, I think sometimes kids are really intrigued. And they're very intrigued that Joey, number one, knew all of these hockey players and was like, kind of famous in Edmonton and famous in the area. And I think that that's really a wonderful testament to, the Down Syndrome Society, is that this is like a great human being. And I think that that's wonderful that kids are so responsive to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring my attention to Alice. Alice, I believe we have some hockey players amongst us tonight. So I'm going to do a special shout out to the Capital City Condors. So Alice, are you a hockey fan?
I am not a hockey fan. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a hockey fan.
But
I love skating. That's a big part of hockey.
Awesome.
Hockey was a part of my house as a kid. So, there was a lot of nostalgia when I was working on a lot of these illustrations, because I'm back in my mind and looking at a lot of hockey pictures, to draw the equipment and the jerseys, and looking at the different jerseys and all that kind of stuff. The old hockey cards, that there was a connection there, even if I'm not a hardcore fan.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And you would have to do a lot of research for your illustrations. Yeah. So another hockey question.
Sure.
The Moss family had a personal connection to Wayne Gretzky. He's in the book.
Yes,
How nervous were you to draw the great one?
So I didn't think I was nervous, but then I really thought about this question, because I had a heads up you were going to ask me this, which is, I'm glad. I might have frozen, but when I thought about it, the main spread where he is there and he notices Joey at the bus stop, this was actually one of the very last spreads that I did.
Okay.
Because I think when you're drawing someone so famous with such a recognizable face, you can get a bit stuck, a bit worried, because you want to make sure people are going to recognize them. So it did take some back and forth with the creative director Jennifer that I worked with, and the publisher, till it was just right. But I've had feedback that people say Wayne Gretzky, as well as the other hockey players, you know, they recognized them, and that was really nice. So,
Awesome.
and like I said, also Wayne Gretzky was my brother's favorite hockey player growing up. So
Okay.
like I said, there was this nostalgia. I was thinking about my brother when he was little, and he had the Wayne Gretzky jersey, and he collected hockey cards. So it, you know, yeah, it brought me to that place, which was really nice.
Awesome. Thank you. What was the most challenging part of illustrating Good Morning Sunshine?
This was my first nonfiction picture book.
Mhm.
So the other picture books I've done in the past, the characters really were just out of my imagination. I could figure out what they looked like and go with it. This was a very special person, Joey, and his family and hockey players that are real people that people knew. And so it felt like a very different challenge to make sure, and it felt like a responsibility to make sure that I got them right. And when I say right, especially in the case of Joey, I don't mean that it's a, you know, realistic portrait of him, because that's not what I do, but I didn't really know a lot about him before I started this project. And so I did research, and even before I accepted the contract, I wanted to know what was this all about. And I watched videos of him, interviews of people talking about his influence on them, and his joy and his enthusiasm like came right through the screen. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm invested. This,
Right.
like, I got to do this right. And I got to get that joy that's coming through the screen at me to somehow come through the book. And that became my mission. And so to hear Lorna's feedback and the feedback we've gotten from people, that they can feel that, like the family and different people, is like unbelievable, so special. So that was the challenge, but that also is
Right.
a really incredible part of it. It just felt like a really big responsibility, but I like a challenge, so it was great.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you might have already answered my next question, your favorite part of illustrating it.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge was great for sure. I like stepping outside of my comfort zone, doing something different, a totally different type of project than I did. A challenge was there's a lot of information. When I read the manuscript, there's so many things that Lorna touched on, so many different parts of Joey's story, from when he's, you know, a baby all the way through his whole life. So not only did I have to depict him, but through the ages and carry his, you know, his spirit through it. But I wanted to figure out a creative way to fit all that information in. And it just came to me one day, like a scrapbook, a photo album. And that was so much fun to play around with. Real tape, I collaged real tape in there, and photo corners, and, you know, pencils, like whatever I could put in to give it that feel. So that was a really fun part of it, for sure.
Awesome. So as you can see, the book has a lot of vibrant colors. So you used a lot in your work. So yellow and blue have been used to represent Down syndrome. Did you enjoy incorporating those colors into the pages?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so what are your favorite colors to work with as well?
Well, in this project, I really wanted to make sure the sunshine from the title, but also the sunshine that Joey spread, was present in the book as something that carried through. And there are some pages where it sort of isn't there. So the parts where he's having a hard time, like this spread, he's not really loving his job, there isn't as much of that. And then, you know, it starts to come back when he starts, you know, finding his place. And so that was, the yellow was something I knew I really wanted to carry through. And the blue worked really well as a contrast, and the Oilers, there's the reference there. And just in general, I don't think I have favorite colors. I just noticed when I look at all my work together, there's just like, I think a subconscious love of certain colors, turquoises and bright oranges and purples, that just sort of become part of your style, whether you plan it or not. You just gravitate to certain things.
Thank you. So we have some budding artists within our community. My final question for you, Alice, is if you could provide some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Wow. Some words of encouragement. I think a big one is art should feel good when you're making it. It should be fun. And so I would say focus on the things that make you feel good when you're doing it. It doesn't have to always be about the outcome, what you have at the end, but the experience of making it. The most magical thing about being creative in any kind of art, I think, is sometimes the time just disappears. Like hours go by, you don't even notice because you're so into what you're doing. You're just in it. And so if you find something that makes you feel like that, I think explore that or go with that. And my other big thing is I'm a big believer in there's no right and wrong in art. And you don't have to worry about things being perfect. It's like the drips and the smudges that make everything more interesting. And we all have our own ways of doing things. So I'd also say, find your own way of doing things. Don't worry too much about what other people are doing. And I guess just also do it. It's like exercise. The more you do it, just don't forget to do it. I know for me, if I haven't done anything for creative for a few days, like I can feel it. So then I'm like, even if it's just doodling in the corner of the newspaper, I'm like, oh, there it is. So that's more than a few words of encouragement.
Oh, that's great. That is wonderful advice. Thank you so much. So before I check in with the group chat to see if there are any questions for our guests, I'll have you in on a little secret. Alice informed me that tonight is the very first time that her and Lorna have met. Did you know that more often than not, authors and illustrators do not work together on a book? It's very surprising. So I want to open up the floor to Lorna and Alice to see if they have any questions for each other.
Well, I was gonna say one because, and you already answered it though. I was very interested in how you came up with the scrapbook idea, because to me, that was like such a beautiful part of it, like all of these collages that you were able to put together and how you made it look like it was like, with like all the little things, like the things up top too. Like my mom used to use those when she did scrapbooks. So I just found that to be really interesting, that's what you came up with and how you actually came up with that.
Yeah, I wish I could time travel back into my brain to be like, what happened in there that made me, because it doesn't happen all the time that things just come to you. But I think what I tend to do is I read, when I first get a manuscript, I read it over and over and over again. And I just scribble any little thoughts or doodles or anything that comes out. And then I go for like a long walk, or I just carry on with whatever I'm doing. And it's like percolating in there. And then ideas start to bubble up. And it was definitely like a lot of information, a lot of words, a lot of different things to try to fit in. And I think I knew it wasn't going to lend itself well to like a straightforward in pictures, this happened and this happened and this happened. I didn't want to miss out on details. So I wish I could tell you exactly how it came, but probably on a walk, mulling over like, how am I going to do this? It came to me. I like drawing. Like I love drawing people. That's my main thing for sure. But I'm learning that I also like to draw pencils and tambourines and those things as well. And it was a really fun way to get in details without having to do every single moment of the story, right, if that makes sense.
And as far as the photos, because I guess just to let everybody know, no, we don't work together, but I work with the editor. We do the words, get it what we call clean, we do the edit and the edit and the edit, the edit before it goes to Alice. And I'm not a big picture book writer with a lot of illustrator notes. I don't think we had very many notes in there. I'm not somebody who puts in a lot of notes. I just sort of write the story and have a few notes, and that's probably about it. But when it goes, then the editor talks to Alice. So I made sure that I sent all of these photos from the family that the family had given me. And then I know for a fact that the editor sent them off, because I sent, I think, 3 photos that look like this. And I loved how you did that photo. How did you decide which one that you were going to use? Because there were 3 of them. There were 3 different types of photos that were sent of the family band.
Yeah. And
because they were this traveling roadshow band. I found that so fascinating. I love the fact that Joey was just like put on the stage, like, here's your tambourine, Joey, just go out and play the tambourine.
Like, his parents were amazing, like the stuff
and he loved performing, and he always performed.
Yeah.
Like, he always performed at functions all the time. He was always performing. Like, he would get up on stage, he'd sing La Bamba, he'd dance, always. And that's from the beginning. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, it was just, I think at the beginning, you know, I was looking at pictures online, and then all of a sudden there was this email that was like, oh, here are some photos that the author got. And then the next day, oh, we have another batch of photos, and these photos just kept coming and coming. And they were amazing photos, like those family band pictures. And I think I just chose the one where I felt like I could see everybody the best.
Right, okay.
But I gotta find it now. Like, this is an actual t-shirt that Joey was wearing in one of the pictures.
Yes.
You know, so like, it was really important to me. The family was so generous that, you know, I felt like I was looking at their whole life, and so I wanted to put as much of that in as I could. Yeah. This was from, like, I found the YouTube video of him performing La Bamba on stage one day, and I watched it. So these musicians, like, if they ever saw this book, they might recognize themselves, you know. So it was just an absolute joy to be able to, like, even though I didn't know Joey like Lorna did, through making this book and looking at the family photos and learning about him, I felt in a way that I got to know him. So that was really amazing. So. And this was actually, like, I'm just going off on a tangent now, but Lorna was saying the pictures, like, I drew and drew and drew Joey over and over again until one day I drew this one. And I, again, not knowing him, I just stopped and said, okay, I got it. That's Joey. Yeah. And then when this never appeared on the inside of the book, but when it became time to do the cover, I was like, okay, this is actually like the original sketch, you know, reworked right there in the middle of the front of the book. Because for me, that's when I know the feeling of, like, yeah, that's because I do portraits sometimes, and it's just a feeling more than anything. So
very good.
Does that answer your question, Lorna?
Yes, it does, actually. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Alice, you have a question for Lorna?
I think Lorna answered a lot of mine earlier, but I mean, I think one was I was going to ask you how you decided to make it a picture book specifically. Could you say a little bit more about why you felt the picture book was the best format for Joey's story?
You know, okay, so a couple reasons. Number one, I just sat down and started writing, and that's what came out. But the other thing that I felt was really important was that this is going to be read by children who parents may be reading to their kids who are 4, you know, from ages 4 up. It's, you know, says 4 to 7. What, you know, maybe somebody in grade 1 or 2 will read it to themselves, that kind of thing. And I just felt the earlier that it can be established that kids that are born with Down syndrome are wonderful human beings, and you know, I just felt that was important, that the earlier time to establish a book like this would be that picture book time. And I just felt that to create inclusion is super important, and let's start when they're young, you know, and if a book can help do that, great, that's wonderful. And if Joey can help do that, that's great.
That leads me to my other question was, what do you think Joey would think of this book? I know it's a tricky one, but
no, Joey would really, really like it, because Joey liked when Joey got inducted into the to the Alberta Hall of Fame, because he got inducted into the Alberta Hall of Fame. He was going through his Alzheimer's at the time, and we actually had a fashion show, but he continually repeated to me, he would say, Red Deer, Hall of Fame, Red Deer, Hall of Fame. He wanted everybody to know that he was in the Red Deer Hall of Fame. So I really do believe that if he would have been around with this book, he would have been very happy. He might have even carried it around and been like, my book, me, he would have been very happy
Nice.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, I will check out the chat and ask you some questions from our lovely listeners. Okay, so Lorna, how many drafts did you write before completing the approved story?
Well, you probably don't want to know this, but lots. A picture book, a book like this, any book, goes through many, many, many drafts. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's going to go through me probably like 10 drafts before I even send it to my agent, who then gives me some help, who then I rewrite it, and then I send it to the editor, and then after that it goes through draft after draft after draft. I mean, discussing a lot of it, like how to say that I really, really wanted to get in about that, what Down syndrome was, and I wanted to be clear about it. I didn't want it to be a like just this like airy fairy sort of thing. I really wanted it to have that it's a genetic disorder. He was born with an extra chromosome. So, I mean, that was something that we went over a lot. Like, how is this going to be put in? Because this is a picture book. Also, how are we going to write about, being institutionalized, which is a very, very big word. But again, I wanted to make it a word that, which I said, which meant they did not live at home with their family. So therefore a child can understand that. They might not understand the word institutionalized, but I think that was a big word that they can learn if they know what it means. So draft after draft after draft to get that part of the book correct. And so, yeah, it goes through a lot of drafts. Just, I can't even know the number, but I'm just going to say it goes through a lot of drafts. It's not just a first draft thing.
Thank you. Thanks, Lorna. This question's for Alice. Alice, what paint do you use to make your illustrations? Your colors are so bright.
Wow.
Good question.
I use all kinds of stuff. Like I use a lot of watercolor, pencil, crayon. I don't know if this person is asking for the specific brand. I'd have to go and look and come back. So I'll get back to you about that. But I use it's like a watercolor pen, and they're very vibrant colors. And I do a lot of, I call it collage, because I'll do bits and pieces on paper. I also scan it in and do some work digitally as well. So It's a bit of this, a bit of that. I do some stamping, I do some collage, I do some pencil, crayon, bit of digital work, and then I put it all together. So, and I don't know, it always seems brighter and brighter. I've set out on things before where I said, I'm going to try a more subdued palette. And next thing you know, it's bright again. So I think it's just, I think what I imagined when I was a kid felt like home, felt like grabbed my attention. So, yeah.
And just to add on, how long would it take you, do you think, to do one illustration?
Oh boy, that's always a really hard question. And you'd think by now, after being asked that question so many times, I would set a timer sometime and see. But one spread goes through a lot, like Lorna's saying, with the drafts for the writing side of things. The drawings go through, teeny tiny little drawings that outline the whole book and what's going to happen on each page, which is done more as an overview of the whole book and imagining what happens when you turn the pages, sort of looking at it as a whole piece and then working through it page by page. So, I mean, it could be a couple full days of work on the final. Again, I work in bits and pieces, so I don't even start one spread and finish it. I might do, like, I'm going to do 10 Joeys this week and do all the separate pieces and then put it all together. So it's a little hard to say, but it's a big job, usually from starting, saying, yes, I'm going to illustrate this book, to it actually being on the shelves in the store can sometimes be like 3 years, 2 to 3 years. I mean, you're not working solid that whole time, but
Right.
it is a long process.
Wow. Well, okay. Yes. My 9-year-old has a question.
What was your favorite book to write?
Is he talking to me?
Yeah.
To my favorite book to write? That's a really, really good question. And I usually say that I liked writing all of my books. Like I have a special place for all of them. I mean, this Joey book was super special just because I knew him, and knowing the family, it was really important to me to make sure that this book was correct. But I think every book that I work on, and sometimes I say the book that I'm working on right now is probably the one that I'm most entrenched in, right? But I think that I like them all. They're kind of like my kids.
Yeah.
I can't say that I love one kid better than the other.
Thanks,
Good question. Thank you.
Alice, this question's for you, but I feel like you've spoken on this. How did you choose what you should illustrate when given the words for a page?
Yeah, because you can't, with this type of story, you can't put every single thing. So I just happened to open to this page, for example.
Okay.
There's a lot of information on this page about Joey, his brothers, his sisters, when he was born, Down syndrome itself. And I thought a lot about this, and sometimes it has to do with the visual part of it. This is really busy. There's a lot happening here. There's a lot going on. And when you flip the page, it's sort of one moment. And so there's a pacing thing that goes on where you figure out how you want the reader to experience the book. So rather than have another page with a lot going on, I felt like this was a really important, special moment. He was born, his parents are meeting him for the first time. And so I just wanted to focus on that. So that's an example of again, sometimes you want to put lots in and you have to, you can fit lots. And then other times you have to narrow in on what it is that you're trying to convey with the picture. So.
I love that page, by the way. And that is one page where Patty did say, that looks so much like my dad.
Wow, that's, I don't know. You can't say over and over
I
again
don't
how
know.
special
Like
it
she
is
said,
to hear that.
she said that looks like my dad. Like I don't know if you saw a picture of the dad. Well, obviously you would have with the glasses. Yeah, I should.
Yeah,
that looks
for
like
sure.
my dad. So that was really like a heartfelt moment for her as a sibling, to see her father and mother, like, because she would have been, I think Patty was probably maybe around 13 or so, 14 when Joey was born, like 14, 15, like she was older, right? Because there was 13 kids. So Joey was 12 and she was number two. So she would have been she would have remembered that time in her life when Joey was brought home from the hospital. And that picture like really touched her, of her mom and dad.
I was really lucky because early on when my first sketches went off and you're just waiting for feedback, the publisher was it was just lovely because I guess they had shown, and I never know what's going on behind the scenes, but they had passed the sketches along to Lorna, and I don't know who exactly saw them, but I was given really positive feedback about the reaction. And that just gave me, trust that I was going in the right direction, and I had found what I needed to find to just go with the project. So, yeah.
Well, as I said, I sent the sketches to Patty, and then Patty would fan it out to all of the siblings. So it went out to everybody before it was actually and they were able to chime in. They were able to say, that's where I got the Timmy Jimmy. I was like, I'm sorry, I mixed it up. I just laughed so hard when they came in though with, this is number 5 speaking, and I've always been number 5. I've never been number 6. I was like, I laughed. Oh my goodness. Then they come in, this is number 7, and this is number, it's just like, wow. And so she just like sent me the whole email chain. So I knew all their reactions, like on everything, like of what, and they were all extremely positive, which was great.
Great. A question for Lorna. Do you have a favorite memory of Joey?
Yes, I think that my favorite memory of Joey is actually we were at a Edmonton Oilers Christmas party, and him and I went up and danced to La Bamba. Like the two of us were the only ones on the dance floor. He wanted to dance, and then of course everybody came up after that, but he really wanted to dance to La Bamba, and the two of us were up dancing to La Bamba. And you know, it's so beautiful because right now when the Oilers score, I was just at the game last night, if they win, they play La Bamba. Like, and it's play La Bamba, baby. Like they play La Bamba after a win. They only do it after a win. It's never after a loss. It's only after a win. And then that's when the guys raise their sticks, and you know, that's going to continue on and on and on. And Joey absolutely loved that song. I mean, there was a lot of things that I didn't put in, and I would have put in if it was a biography that was like, you know, written as with no pictures, not as a picture book, but I only had 1,000 words to write it. So many things about how he loved James Bond movies and how he loved, you know, he got to meet Hulk Hogan. You know, he loved wrestling. And so somebody got him tickets to meet Hulk Hogan, and he went and he just loved it. And then Patty told me all kinds of stories about, you know, Joey hiding behind the sofas and just doing all kinds of things, and how he knew all the words to all the James Bond songs. And so they said we'd get in the van and Joey would have his head, like his Walkman in. And then finally they'd say, stop singing, like stop, because he'd sing and sing and sing like the whole way in the drive. And they'd be like, okay, Joey, that's enough. No more James Bond. It's over. It's over. So there were so many things that I just couldn't put into the book. I just didn't have the space, and I really had to pick and choose how it was going to flow. But yeah, so dancing to La Bamba with Joey.
Thank you, Lorna. Lorna, for you again, what is it like to get your hands on the illustrated copy for the first time?
It's so exciting. It really is exciting when you get, because you have no idea what you're going to get. Like you have no idea what you're going to get. And I didn't know Alice. I mean, I looked up Alice's work, of course, once I found out that Alice was going to be the illustrator. Of course, I went, and I know Lana Button, and I know that you've done work for Lana, and Lana, you know, sings your praises. So I was able to go on and see the style, you know, see Alice's style, but that doesn't mean that I have any idea. And so when I got the initial proofs, it was pretty powerful. It's pretty amazing to get the proofs. And I just felt that the color palette was absolutely stunning. Like I just was so pleased. And that was a great question about the where you get the vibrancy from it, because it really is a beautiful, beautiful yellow. Like it's gorgeous, right? Like it's just so strong. So yeah, it's really fun to get those first illustrations.
Great, thank you. So I don't see any more questions in the chat, but feel free if anyone has any questions. Greg from Octopus Books has also put in Alice's website and Lorna's website if you want to go check them out as well. You can get your own copy of Good Morning Sunshine. You can visit Octopus Books on 116th 3rd Avenue in Ottawa. So I'll just wait a few moments to see if anyone else has any questions. We are nearing the end. And while we wait, maybe we could show off some of our fun mismatched socks for World Down Syndrome Day. So it's been a tradition that on this day, our community wear different socks to represent the extra chromosome in trisomy 21, as chromosomes kind of look like socks. So if you don't want to show off your feet, you can put your socks on your hands. And I have.
Are you doing your feet, Alice?
Yeah, I practiced.
Yeah, I got one.
I got one polka dots and one stripes.
Nice,
and I'm afraid if I try to do both, I'll fall off my chair. So
I've got one orange to match the book and one blue to match the book.
Lovely.
I often put characters in mismatched socks. That's always been something I've done. And I actually went back to the book today. So if you do have the book, if you look closely, there is one character in this book with mismatched socks. So you can try to find them.
So I'd like to give a final thank you for tonight for joining us. Thank you to our guests, author Lorna Schultz Nicholson and illustrator Alice Carter, to Octopus Books, and to the DSANCR. And hopefully I don't cry, but the book ends with these powerful words. Just by being himself, Joey showed the world that everyone can be a force for good, active in their community, and a positive role model. I hope you have a great World Down Syndrome Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you. Thank you everybody for coming. We really appreciate it.